Welcome to Asia Outlook. I'm Melody and I'm here to report the top stories from around Asia. Chinese President Xi Jinping has discussed the coronavirus pandemic with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. In a phone call, President Xi said coordination between China and Russia indicates high level of cooperation. President Xi also said China will continue to support Russia in its fight against COVID-19 and thanked Russia for supporting Chinese nationals there. Putin said his smear campaign against China are unacceptable and Russia will continue its cooperation with China. Medical staffs from the Chinese army has started departing Hubei province as it ends to battle against the coronavirus. Around 4,000 military medics dispatched to Hubei, epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak in China, have returned with approval from Xi Jinping, chairman of the Central Military Commission. The medics have treated over 7,000 patients over January and no military medics have been reported infected during this period. Prevention measures to contain the spread of the novel coronavirus didn't stop people in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea from commemorating the birthday anniversary of the late founding leader Kim Il-sung in Pyongyang on the Day of the Sun on Wednesday. Marathon runner Ren Chao from Wuhan has volunteered to become a vaccine test subject to fight against the pandemic. Let's take a look.
Marathoner Ren Chao missed about 800 kilometers of training runs over the past 3 months as the coronavirus shut down his city. That's the equivalent of about 19 full marathons. Now the 36-year-old Wuhan native has volunteered as a vaccine test subject to help beat the pandemic.
我当时看到这个链接的时候，我没有想很多。我当时看这个链接的时候，我只觉得，好像我又能做点什么了。
As a guard at Wuhan University, Ren volunteered to do security work for the World Military Games held in the city last October. This year, he provided medical workers free rides at the beginning of the outbreak. Now he's volunteering again to help fight the virus.
对于我而言的话，我就想，就是说，如果我们一旦有了疫苗的话，那么就意味着我们可以彻底战胜这个新冠疫情。
Ren was among the 108 healthy volunteers in the country's Phase 1 trial for a candidate COVID-19 vaccine. During the 2 weeks in isolation facility, the sports buff reported no adverse reactions. So when he saw a clip about the potential vaccine, which sensationalized bad reactions go viral on social media, it inspired him to make his own videos to document what really happens to volunteers during the trials.
上面就只说疫苗志愿者出现发烧、头晕、全身酸痛，然后配一个惊心动魄的背景音乐，然后什么就都没有了。他那个新闻爆出来的那一天，其实就个别志愿者出现这个情况的、出现这个现象的，已经那时候全部都好了。但是我看那个新闻以后，我就会觉得你这个东西就是无形当中给大家造成一个恐慌。本来大家就因为新冠疫情这个事情绷紧了一根弦，大家那个时候的心理承受能力相对来讲是很脆弱的。那么我觉得我可以站出来，我告诉大家，想让大家知道一个实情，也想给大家给大家一个希望。
He also shared his passion for marathons in his first ever live stream. Ren began his amateur sports career in 2016 at the first Wuhan Marathon. Over the years, he has improved his times setting a personal record of 2 hours 45 minutes. This year, Wuhan had to cancel its marathon, scheduled for April 12th. Instead of training, Ren is focusing on securing a non-COVID-19 campus where hundreds of students and thousands of households are still self-isolating. Meanwhile, he says defeating the virus will still require a marathon-like effort.
我觉得武汉正在经历一场特殊的马拉松比赛。我们经过了撞墙期，我们征服了各种各样的困难。现在我们已经来到了41公里。随着我们的疫苗的试验，我们已经可以看得到终点的拱门，可以听得到周围人的欢呼声。但是我们现在其实并没有赢，我们还需要坚持，还需要继续努力。只有等到冲线的那一刻，越过终点拱门的那一刻，我们才是赢，我们才能取得这场战役的胜利。
周嘉欣 CGTN, Wuhan.
Iran is starting to ease some restrictions as the number of new COVID-19 cases drops. The country has seen 73,000 infections and nearly 4,600 deaths so far. CGTN Sarbaz Nazari gets more on this from Tehran.
Well, first of all, the updated report by the Health Ministry yesterday marked a daily 111 deaths, which and a population of the infected going beyond 73,000. The Health Ministry says these are all signs that things are gradually coming on the right track toward kicking the virus. What appears to be taking place at the moment is a fluctuating push between normalization of the situation and keeping the public alerted and vigilant. The government spokesman said yesterday that some balance is being created between protecting the public health and the economy both. They have also told the public that there is no specific date to be announced about when we can make it safely to the other side, if you will. The nationwide social distancing plan is being pursued along with a partial reopening of the economy. But this has sparked scenes of normal traffic in many big cities and moments in which people do not seem to be really socially distancing from one another, which has been interpreted by epidemiologists as a horrifying signal about a fresh resurgence in the coming days. We know, of course, that there are also other workable measures in place, such as taxis using plastic barriers and 500 buses being added to the fleet in Tehran to help ease the burden and decrease the possibility of cross-infections. And on the medical front also, there's talk of positive progress, including the introduction of plasma treatment, which health officials say has increased the recovery rate inside ICUs by 40%.
The leaders of 10 Southeast Asian countries have held a special virtual meeting with leaders of China, Japan, and South Korea to discuss the pandemic. They shared experiences and discussed potential cooperation to contain the disease. Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Chon Phuc chaired the meeting and raised concerns over economic damage. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang called for joint efforts to defeat the virus.
The battle against COVID-19 has made us more aware that we are in a community with a shared future. We must act with greater synergy and common purpose, and articulate our determination to work together in closer coordination and cooperation and make a collective response to the epidemic.
When cities across China went into lockdown in response to the COVID-19 epidemic, businesses were obliged to close indefinitely. This was very bad news for the service sector, restaurants in particular. With no customers coming through the doors, many were soon struggling to pay rent and staff wages. With time and idle staff on their hands, a number of businesses decided to take proactive action to protect themselves during the lockdown and improve their chance of survival afterwards. Offering a delivery service was a common approach, but some restaurants employed other, more innovative methods to satisfy their customers.
So I've got my safety gear on, I'm allowed in the kitchen, and despite the fact that the restaurant itself is completely empty, behind the scenes it's pretty busy, and as you can see, there's already a few orders ready to go. It's only about 10 o'clock in the morning. People have already pre-ordered, and sorry, and this is where the magic happens. This is the order room, and as you can see, it's super busy just now. People preparing their orders and getting more orders in on the computer. This outlet is served by 4 delivery drivers. On busy days and at peak times, restaurant staff will join the delivery team. It's a useful way for them to make some extra money to compensate for their reduced wages. Wang Gang has been a delivery driver for 6 months. Before setting out, he calls the customer.
我是外送员小王姐，咱们这餐准备好了。
那你就赶紧送过来吧。门口吗？
我到那儿给你打电话才能到那去。
Wang is making 5 deliveries on this trip. It can be difficult to find the right address at the best of times, but it's especially hard now when gates and communities are closed. He finally finds the right place.
我在这儿等你一下，好吗？没有疫情的时候，咱们是要进户的，进户操作的，咱们要操作下锅底。现在是无接触配送，有的门有的他是不在门拿，他离门远，他就会找那个比较离他近一点的，那像矬一点的那个门，可以给他递给他。
All across Beijing, delivery drivers are carrying groceries and food orders to residents and helping them to maintain some level of normality.
这就赶上周6嘛，然后忙了1星期了，很想念吃火锅似的。主要是海底捞也不开门，那只能在家吃了。如果那个疫情过去以后，肯定还是去餐厅就餐，在家毕竟收拾起来还是比较麻烦的呢。
It's not just that customers are missing the restaurant's also missing the custom. Deliveries are only making up for a very small percentage of their regular income.
肯定的，非常期待开业啊！肯定的，又能挣钱了，又能挣好多钱啊！钱挣多了，家里也好啊。
Restaurant staff and delivery drivers, like everyone in China, are hoping that life can get back to normal before too long.
Stay with us as we bring you more news on Asia Outlook. A group of Chinese medical experts arrived in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, on Thursday to assist the African country in its fight against COVID-19. The 12-member team includes specialists in infectious diseases, respiratory and critical care, and other public health areas. The team also traveled with medical supplies, including protective equipment and traditional Chinese medicines that have been shown to be effective through clinical use.
As you know, China has really shown an amazing progress in terms of the containment and of the outbreak, and they are here to share their experiences with our medical and public health team in terms of how we are doing the response and the areas of collaboration. And at the same time, of course, they have also brought commodities especially related to personal protective equipment in terms of infection prevention, which are really highly needed in these times for those who are giving services in our different facilities and in the response overall.
Russia again saw its biggest spike yet in coronavirus cases, reporting on Tuesday a record of 2,700 new infections in one day. President Vladimir Putin is warning that the country has not yet reached the peak of the coronavirus pandemic, as the number of confirmed cases rises above 21,000. CGTN Julia Chapman has more from Moscow.
Vladimir Putin gave his starkest warning yet over COVID-19, saying the situation is changing daily and not for the better. Addressing Russia's coronavirus task force, the president said the country doesn't have much to brag about and certainly can't relax. Russian officials are starting to acknowledge that the country's healthcare system is struggling with the virus, with Moscow hospitals already stretched thin and ambulances facing lengthy queues to drop off patients. Most of the country's cases have been centered on the capital, where there is a lockdown in place and a permit system is due to come into effect from Wednesday. But the virus is now spreading to many of Russia's far-flung regions, whose healthcare systems are much less able to cope with a high number of serious illnesses. President Putin has called on regional officials to help ensure that any healthcare and equipment shortages are addressed. He's also suggested that the military could become more involved in fighting coronavirus. The Ministry of Defense has already been involved in building a number of small medical facilities and helping to enforce isolation measures. Julia Chapman, CGTN, Moscow.
China approved adding COVID-19 into drug indications for 3 traditional Chinese medicines. TCM experts welcomed the decision and said it will help their international peers build confidence. Let's take a look.
3 Chinese drugs have undergone clinical trials with the National Medical Products Administration to include COVID-19 into their expanded drug indications. TCM expert Dr. Zhangbo Li says a health crisis may just be the cradle for good drugs.
That means these 3 drugs have passed strict reviews by the administration and can be commonly and widely used in China. Their effects are exact and backed with ample evidence, so people may have the new choice if there is a similar epidemic in the future.
The drugs, specifically Jinhua Qinggan granules, Lianhua Qingwen capsules, and Xuebijing injections, have been widely used in COVID-19 treatment of over 70,000 patients across China. The National TCM Administration says the drugs have proven effective in easing COVID-19 symptoms such as fever and inflammation.
Over the past 2 months, medical workers have risked their lives to reach the conclusion step by step. The process to get the evidence during the clinical studies was difficult, yet scientific.
Zhang says with Beijing's recognition of TCM, medical workers overseas may build more confidence in applying the Chinese art of healing. He adds that Thailand has given the green light to Lianhua Qingwen into its market, while France stands ready to conduct clinical trials on it. Sun Tianyuan, CGTN, Wuhan.
Japanese media said Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has expanded the state of emergency to the whole country as confirmed COVID-19 cases continues to rise. The latest data from Johns Hopkins University put total infection in Japan about 8,600. The state of emergency will last until at least the May of 6. The government declared a state of emergency earlier this month for Tokyo and 6 other prefectures. Russia has postponed a landmark military parade to honor the 75th anniversary of the Soviet victory in World War II due to the health concerns over the coronavirus pandemic. President Vladimir Putin informed his Security Council of the decision on Thursday by video conference. He says the 2020 parade will still take place at some point, while he commemorates the Soviet victory over the Nazi every year on May 9th with a huge military display. Putin's decision follows the suspension of a vote which was originally scheduled for this month on major constitutional changes. Russia has registered about 28,000 coronavirus cases and 232 deaths, but experts warn that the peak has yet to come. Thailand is to clean millions of coins encased carrying the coronavirus bacteria. The Thai Treasury will also issue new coins to slow the spread of the disease.
Very concerned of public safety. So we feel that we have to take all precautionary measures, the utmost measures that we can do to for the public safety.
Anyone coughing or sneezing could coat coins, particularly with the virus bacteria. Handing money to another person risks passing the virus onto them.
India is in its fourth week of a nationwide lockdown. The worst hit by the economic impact are migrant workers and slum dwellers. Many are dealing with hunger as they have lost their source of income and have no money for essentials. To address the issue, the government is opening up some sectors on Monday. But will it really be a respite for daily wage earners? CGTN Ravina Bawa has more.
Stranded on the banks of Yamuna River in Delhi, these migrant workers have nowhere to go. In the absence of public transport, they are stuck here without food and shelter.
If someone comes here, a sick man comes, he gives us 2 pieces of bread sometimes 1, so we eat that and are surviving somehow. And some other people come who feed us khichdi, so we have that.
We have no choice but to expose ourselves to the virus by standing in close proximity while collecting food, but I'd rather die of disease than hunger.
Aid workers say such scenes are becoming common in the country. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the government will relax lockdown restrictions from April 20th in manufacturing and agricultural sectors. But will this solve the problem?
Migrant labor in the cities is not going to be able to get too much work out of this particular relaxations that have been announced. In the rural areas, of course, it is possible to have some measures. But even if you look at rural areas, the ability of labor to move, that has also proved to be difficult to ensure.
Tens of thousands of workers who fled the cities after the announcement of lockdown last month are not willing to return. Those who are left behind are desperate to leave. Experts say that authorities are being indifferent to the needs of underprivileged.
You should have made the arrangements for special trains, special buses with social distancing and set them up. Got rid of all non-essential travel, allowed them to go back, and then proceeded with your other activities. You should have done that before you announced that, implemented the lockdown. But having the experience of the last 3 weeks, you're still not doing that.
It will be a challenge to kickstart the economy without the migrant workers. Essential services sector is already facing a shortage of labor. Ravinder Baba, CGTN, Delhi.
Another Japanese official has tested positive for COVID-19, making him the third confirmed case in the country's cabinet. Meanwhile, the government has expanded a state of emergency to all of Japan, allowing local officials to urge people to stay inside, but without punitive measures or legal force. The government is also planning to start distributing coronavirus relief payments next month. There are more news coming on Asia Outlook, so make sure you stick around. From South Korea to Singapore, hundreds of people have been detained for spreading false information about the coronavirus. Despite tightened restrictions and existing cyber crime laws, misinformation is challenging Asia's efforts to contain COVID-19. CGTN Jen Kwan has more.
This is the first pandemic caused by a coronavirus.
March 11th, 2020. Many will remember it as the day the coronavirus outbreak was declared a global pandemic. But at least 5 weeks before this announcement, the World Health Organization raised the alarm on another crisis.
What we do is really first acknowledge that this infodemic exists and needs a specific treatment. And this treatment is not easy because it requires a lot of global collaboration.
Misleading and sometimes convincing pieces of information have spread faster than COVID-19 itself. They've ranged from conspiracy theories to quack cures. In India, for example, some politicians have advocated a traditional yet questionable remedy of cow urine.
Coronavirus is also a bacteria, and cow urine is effective against all the forms of bacteria that harm us.
Meanwhile, hundreds have died from alcohol poisoning in Iran, where ironically, alcoholic beverages are illegal.
Some people falsely thought that drinking alcohol could disinfect their bodies. Some social networks also promoted this. This led to multi-organ failure.
In Europe, a 5G conspiracy theory spread like wildfire, with claims that signals carried by radio waves are responsible for the coronavirus. But experts have dismissed the claims.
It's nonsense. It's the worst kind of fake news. The reality is that the mobile phone networks are absolutely critical to all of us, particularly in a time when we are asking people to stay at home and to not see relatives and friends.
Many have likened the coronavirus outbreak to a war, and misinformation amid the battle has fueled fear, from panic buying to xenophobia. It's become a fight on many fronts, beyond hospital beds and quarantined homes. A duel between contagions, a pandemic versus an infodemic. Jen Kwan, CGTN.
Thousands of net cafe refugees or cash-strapped people living in all-night internet and calming lounges in Japan are seeking housing as outlets are forced to close during the coronavirus pandemic. Some local authorities are now opening shelters to accommodate net cafe refugees and keep them from sleeping out in the open. Let's take a look. The head of the World Health Organization on Wednesday said that he regretted President Trump's decision to pull funding for the agency and called for world unity to fight the new coronavirus pandemic. Take a listen.
The United States of America has been a long-standing and generous friend to WHO, and we hope it will continue to be so. We regret of the President of the United States to order a halt in funding to the World Health Organization. With support from the people and government of the is not only fighting COVID-19, we're also working to address polio, measles, malaria, Ebola, HIV, tuberculosis, malnutrition, cancer, diabetes, mental health, and many other diseases.
When it comes to international cooperation to fight the coronavirus pandemic, China and South Korea have much to share. During a media briefing on Thursday, Kang Seong-sok, South Korean Consul General in Wuhan, said the two countries have stood with each other through thick and thin. He also expressed his hope that this friendship will serve as a basis for further bilateral exchanges in the future. Kang arrived in Wuhan to assume his role at the height of the epidemic in February. International students studying in the United States are facing uncertainty amid school closures and an increasingly over-competitive job market. Many are being forced to return home due to visa restrictions where they can't find work amid the country's economic downturn due to COVID-19. Here is how one mechanical engineering master's student is surviving these troubled times.
For international students, especially mechanical students, we do need to apply to a few hundred companies just to get a few interviews. It's been really hard, but in the month of March, as the pandemic hit us, it's even more harder to even get our application through because many of the companies are laying off people and they're just not even having a look at our applications and they're not accepting any applications. So job search has been really hard right now and it's almost on a pause. The only other option I would have is to get back home, it's a good option. I would get back home and pursue my work experience over there. And now I am on for a few more days. I was scheduled to have my graduation on the May 15th. The commencement was a really big part of my hard work that I put into my master's studies. And I would have been really proud to have my parents and friends all along with me at this huge ceremony. And it would have been like something really memorable for lifelong. It's really great to have a commencement ceremony, but I feel really bad that it's not able to happen this time. All the plans got cancelled and I don't know when we are going to have the commencement again. Staying optimistic, staying positive at this situation, I think would be the best option for me as well as my parents and everyone else. There's no point in thinking of a negative manner. It's just going to make things worse. So let's all be positive about it.
The coronavirus pandemic has forced the world to stay at home, leaving millions with plenty of time on their hands. TikTok app has seen a rise in both monthly revenue and downloads.
With much of the world forced to stay at home to curb the spread of COVID-19, the internet has become an escape from the doldrums of self-distancing. And no app has gotten a bigger boost than TikTok. Known for its short video dance crazes that are popular with Gen Z, it's become a haven for those coping with stay-at-home orders. People are using the app to share dance challenges, recipes, and even coronavirus tips and information. Even the World Health Organization is using the platform.
Are now at home to protect your health and that of those nearest you.
TikTok has seen a rise in both monthly revenue and downloads. According to analytics firm Sensor Tower, the number of TikTok downloads rose 27% in March compared to February, and the company reported a 34% revenue boost for the same period. The app even got this news producer hooked. Research firm Nielsen says quarantine or social distancing measures are expected to boost media consumption in the United States by 60%.
We as an industry will pivot to now figure out how do we deal with the new world, the new environment that we live in.
But not every form of media is showing an increase. The analytics firm Backtracks has reported a decline in podcast listenership in the US, in part because fewer people are commuting to work. As more people are forced to stay indoors, it seems the sound of a clock has never been more entertaining. Maria Galang, CGTN, Washington.
And that's all we have for today's Asia Outlook on MI Radio. Thank you for being with us. I'm Melody. We'll be back next week. Until next time.